We provide clear immigration news and information. Our platform provides a network of licensed attorneys who can answer your questions and guide you through the process. From visas to green cards, asylums to citizenships, immigrationquestion.com helps you to network with immigration attorneys so that you can move forward with confidence. Sign up today or download the app. Free registration, limited time offer. Stay tuned. We go live in 30 seconds.
Hello everyone and welcome to the special edition webinar hosted by immigrationquestion.com, a networking platform and meeting ground where immigrants, families, advocates, and licensed immigration attorneys come together to better understand U.S. immigration policies and procedures better. My name is Chibi Satusa and I will be your host for today's important discussion, how to strengthen a marriage-based immigration case. Now, marriage-based immigration is one of the most common pathways to obtaining a lawful permanent residence in the United States. However, applicants must meet specific requirements and provide convincing evidence to prove that their marriage is genuine and not entered into for immigration purposes only. Understanding what USCIS is looking for, how to present strong supporting evidence, and how to avoid common mistakes can help couples build a strong case and reduce the risk of delays or denials. To help us break this down, we are honored to be joined by attorney Mary Radzimowski, an experienced immigration attorney who assists couples in preparing and strengthening marriage-based immigration applications, including complex cases involving unique circumstances. Attorney Radzimowski, thank you for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you for this important discussion.
Well, I'm honored to be here.
Now, before we begin, a quick reminder to our audience, immigrationquestion.com is a public educational and networking platform. The information shared today is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute individualized legal advice. If you are joining us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or any other platform, welcome. Please do subscribe and share this session with anyone who may benefit from understanding how to strengthen a marriage-based immigration case. Let's dive right in. All right, Attorney Radzimowski, to begin, can you explain the requirements for a marriage-based green card and what USCIS looks for in evaluating the legitimacy of a marriage?
Okay. Well, the primary thing that USCIS looks for is what we call the bona fides of the marriage. That is good faith. That it is, in fact, a good faith marriage based on love and not just something that someone is doing to get a green card. That is essentially what the entire marital green card process is about. So the most important part of this process is gathering all the evidence you can of your shared life together. Any tangible piece of evidence that you have. And this includes basically anything with both of your names on it. First of all, USCIS always wants to see a shared residence. Now, if for some reason there is not a shared residence, that's something that you're going to have to be open about and explain. Say, for example, one spouse is going to the university in one city and the other is living somewhere else. Maybe they don't live together. Well, that happens sometimes, but you have to explain it. You can't hide it. Never lie to them. That's the first rule in dealing with USCIS. Don't lie. Don't misrepresent. But so you want to show your shared residence. You want to show commingled assets, bank accounts in both names, utility bills in both names, insurance policies in both names, basically anything with both of your names on it. Beyond that, you can shore up your petition by supplying letters from friends and family members who know you and who know you as a couple. And these letters really have to be written in a very specific way. They should not just say, well, I know that these people are married, but they should tell something of what they know of your relationship. Little stories and anecdotes, for example, places that they went to. We went to the zoo with Joe and Jane and had such a great time, et cetera, et cetera. Those things really help, all right? I like to have my couples write what I call narrative letters basically that's the story of your relationship. Okay, so I'll get a letter from each one of them. And in addition to that, you want to send along photos of the two of you together, ideally photos with many different people in them, not just the couple. Um, Evidence that the two of you have communicated over time. Some people communicate through text messages, some through telephone, some through Facebook, but anything that can be printed out and sent in. USCIS doesn't take CDs or discs or anything. It has to be something on paper. But those are the kinds of things that you need to prove the bona fides of your marriage. And that is really what the case is all about.
Yeah. Now, you've touched on the evidence. So, what types of evidence are most persuasive in demonstrating a bona fide marriage?
Well, I like to say that there are two different kinds of evidence. One I call the hard proofs of marriage, which means documents. Documents that have both of your names on them, and that's everything I just recited. I mean, the utility bills, the bank accounts, etc. Those are very important, and you have to have them. But also, I like to share the soft proofs as well, which are photos and letters from friends and family members, and proof that the two of you have been texting each other or sending emails or communicating over a long period of time. Even copies of cards and letters that you've sent to each other, things like that. Those are the soft proofs, and those count too.
Yeah. Now, for couples where one spouse has prior immigration violations or other complications, what steps can help safeguard approval?
All right. Well, now it depends on what the prior violation is. A common violation that we do see is that perhaps one spouse was married to a U.S. citizen or permanent resident before, and either that petition was denied or it was withdrawn for some reason, and that can look very suspicious. Now, the first thing we have to determine in that situation is whether there was a determination of marriage fraud made. Sometimes the determination is made, and you'll see that in the decision. Sometimes the decision doesn't go that far. It just says you haven't proven the bona fides of your marriage, and so the petition is denied. It's important to determine what it was there, because if there was a prior finding of marriage fraud, it's quite a significant problem that has to be worked around. It's not impossible to work around, but you're going to have to deal with that, and you're going to have to try to prove that the original marriage case was, in fact, a bona fide marriage before they will consider your new marriage petition. Now, there are other situations in which the spouse may have a prior immigration violation that's different. Say, for example, they were accused of misrepresentation or something like that. There are waivers that can be applied in those situations, most of them. The problem is there's no waiver for marriage fraud. Okay, that's the most serious violation. But other violations, there are many different waivers that can be filed by a U.S. citizen spouse, a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident spouse or parent in some cases, that can have that prior violation excused. However, you first have to file the petition, and then at the point that the officer decides that there has been a violation and that you are inadmissible for some reason, then you will be asked to file a request for a waiver of inadmissibility. But it's very important to have an experienced lawyer evaluate your case in that situation, because in some situations you may want to come forward and file a new petition, and there may be some situations where you don't. All right, and it all depends on the circumstances of your individual case. So do have it looked at.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what are some frequent mistakes couples make on paper or even in the interview that can weaken a case?
I do see sometimes, for example, people don't send in the right documentation. Okay, so sometimes, for example, they were married before and they don't have proof that their prior marriage was dissolved by death or divorce. And it's very important to have that. Some people come from countries where there are different kinds of marriages. Say, for example, in Africa, there are traditional marriages and there are statutory marriages, and they have to be dissolved differently. And you have to have the right kind of document to show that dissolution. So again, it's a technical issue. You have to make sure that you send the right kind of document. Other mistakes can be, I see a lot of mistakes with the affidavit of support. Actually, you have to be careful to provide the right documentation of income. You really have to have filed tax returns for the last 3 years showing an adequate income. In a marriage case, if there is a shortfall in income, it can, in some cases, be made up with assets. Any asset that's easily liquidable, like an asset that can be sold or a bank account. And all you have to do really is show that you have 3 times the assets of the shortfall in income you have. But that's another issue.
Yeah.
Affidavit of supports can be difficult. For example, some people come from countries where they didn't issue birth certificates at the time that they were born, and that birth will have to be documented in the right way according to the regulations. So that, again, is a situation where you really should have counsel.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the interview is concerned, the questions that are going to be asked at the interview are basically questions that you would know about a person you lived with. They're going to ask you about your spouse's family relationships. They're going to ask you about their business relationships. For example, they may say, well, how many siblings does your spouse have? What are their names? Where do they live? Have you met them? Or they may say, what is your spouse's supervisor's name? What hours do they work? When do they start? When do they get home? Things like that. Those are the most common questions that you're going to be asked.
Yeah. Now, for spouses with conditional green cards, how should they prepare for the I-751 petition to remove any conditions?
Could you repeat the question, please?
For the spouses with conditional green cards, how should they prepare for the I-751 petition to remove conditions?
Yes, so you should be preparing for that for the whole 2-year period before you are required to file it. And the way you do that is simply by saving all of your documents that have both of your names on them. All right? Save all your bank statements. And literally, you should be able to send in bank statements for the whole 2-year period. Save all your utility bills, all your insurance statements. Save anything that came to the house that has both of your names on it.
Okay.
And that will be submitted with the I-751.
Okay. All right. Now, in cases with complex circumstances such as prior marriage, age differences, or long-distance relationships, what strategies can help strengthen the application?
Okay, so these are some common red flags to USCIS. Big age differences, racial differences, sometimes even differences in size, things like that can raise red flags. Now, in a case like that, you're going to have to make an especially good case with everything else. And you just have to document. And in those cases, I think it's especially important to get a lot of letters from friends and family members. Now, family members are the best. I mean, if you can provide notarized letters from your parents, from your siblings, from your close friends, attesting to how much they know about the relationship, that helps a lot. All right. And again, you're going to want to send in evidence that the two of you have spent time together. Say your spouse is overseas. It's a long distance relationship. Well, you want to go and visit them more than once. And when you're there, take pictures, travel around their country, go to all the tourist attractions, take pictures there. So you can show pictures of the two of you in many different places at many different times with many different people with you, not just the two of you alone, because that could look staged. And then when you submit this to USCIS, you want to label those pictures with the dates, places they were taken, and the names of the people in them. All right. So you want to be very specific about those things. Send in your airline boarding passes. Send in the receipts from your hotels to show that you traveled in that person's country, that you were in that country over a period of time. All of that helps.
All right. Now, looking ahead, what practical steps can applicants implement to minimize the possibility of RFEs, delays, or even denials?
All right. Well, you have to be very careful about, first of all, sending in all the right vital records. All right, birth certificates, marriage certificate, divorce, death certificates, anything like that.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure that they're all translated into English. All right, with a certification, a certified translation. It doesn't have to be done professionally. You could do it yourself, but you have to attach a certification. Also, the affidavit of support is another area where people tend to get RFEs. You have to send your most recently filed tax return, or even better, an IRS printout, the abstract that you can get from myirs.gov showing what you filed in the last year. And then with that, you want to file W-2 forms and a few recent pay stubs, some proof that you have an ongoing stream of income. That's very important. And we see a lot of RFEs if that isn't done adequately.
Yeah.
And of course, just sending enough proofs of shared life. That's the heart of the application and the most important part.
Yeah. Thank you so much for those insights, Attorney. Now, for everyone watching, this discussion about marriage based immigration is not meant to create a pressure, but to rather encourage preparation and clarity. Presenting consistent, well documented evidence and understanding the process can make a meaningful difference in how the case is evaluated. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. ImmigrationQuestion.com is a networking platform and meeting ground where users can ask immigration related questions at no cost and engage with attorneys that are participating. We're also thrilled to share that ImmigrationQuestion.com is triple B accredited and ISO certified. This is reflecting our commitment to transparency, accountability, community education, and security. Now, Attorney Radzimowski, based on your experience assisting couples with marriage based cases, how does ImmigrationQuestion.com help immigrants and immigration attorneys like yourself?
Well, an attorney can help you, first of all, evaluate your case and see if there are any problems with it. The first thing you have to do is make sure that you are indeed eligible for this benefit. If the person is in the United States and they're going to adjust status, you have to make sure that they entered legally. And they have proof of that legal entry, because you can't adjust without that. Secondly, you have to make sure that there are no other grounds of inadmissibility that may affect your case. And as I said earlier, if you had any prior violations, you have to get them evaluated and make sure that it is something that's going to be able to overcome before you file the application. All right. So that's the initial evaluation stage. Secondly, we can help you gather all the evidence you need to prove that your marriage is a real marriage. And that's the most important part of the case. So often people bring me letters that have to be revised and added to, and we can furnish you with templates, sample letters showing exactly what your letters of support of the marriage should look like, in what format they should be done, and what the technicalities are, how they should be notarized and attested to. And thirdly, we can help you put it all together in the way that USCIS likes to see it, and make sure that it goes to the right place in the right way.
All right. Thanks so much. Now, before we move into our live Q&A, let's tackle this question. What is one common misconception couples have about strengthening a marriage-based immigration case that you believe should be clarified early on in the process?
Well, oftentimes I get letters from people in support of the marriage that are more like character reference letters. sometimes the friends and family think that they're supposed to tell what a good, hardworking, honest person this is. But that's, I mean, it's important, obviously, because this is a discretionary judgment, but it's not really what the case is about, okay? You have to stay on point. You have to tell what you know about this couple as a couple and why you know it, all right? That's the focus. That you have assets in common, that you have children in common. That's the best proof. That you have spent time together. This is what you really have to prove.
Now, before we move into our live Q&A, thank you so much for everyone who's joining us now. We've been speaking with attorney Mary Radzimowski on how to strengthen a marriage-based immigration case. We are now moving to our live Q&A session. This is your opportunity to ask general questions and hear educational insight from a licensed immigration attorney. So drop those questions in the chat or call us live at 516-703-3483 and we'll take as many as time permits. All right. Is it better to submit?
All right. Generally, I do submit as many as possible, but you have to be careful not to overwhelm the officers. For example, I've had people send me 100 pages of photographs, which is totally unnecessary. All right. You don't have to send that many. And again, you want to be careful. You don't want to alienate the decision maker because if it makes their life harder, it doesn't help. I mean, our job is to help these people make the decision we want them to make as quickly as possible. That being said, this is a process in which you want to throw as much at it as you can. Again, you have to use your discretion. Not too much, but enough.
All right. What kinds of questions will the visa officers ask me and my wife during our interviews?
Well, as I said before, most of the questions will rotate around two categories, and that's family on the one hand and employment on the other. They will ask you questions about your family and your job. Beyond that, they may ask certain things like, for example, oftentimes they will ask, what did you do at the last holiday? For example, Easter was just a few days ago. They might say, where did you spend Easter? And this is a question that would be asked if they separate the two people, if they suspect that there's something wrong. And then they might say, did you take a vacation last year? Where did you go? How did you travel? Did you take a car? Did you take an airplane? Questions like that.
Yes.
But other than that, most of the questions are going to rotate around family relationships. What is his mother's first name? Where does his father live? Did your husband go to college? What was his degree in? How much education does he have? And then sometimes they question about faith. Does your spouse go to church? Did they go last week? Where did they go? Do you go with them? Things like that.
Yeah. All right. Attorney, will a large age gap or cultural differences affect our case?
Well, it is something that it's a red flag to USCIS. It is something that's going to get their attention and make them look a little more carefully at your case. So in a case like that, what I would say is you really have a harder job. You really want to throw everything you can at it. You really have to supply as many proofs of shared life as you can. And in fact, if there is a big cultural difference or age difference, you may want to discuss that in your narrative letter. As I said, I do have my couples write a narrative letter telling the story of their relationship, how they met, how they fell in love, etc. And you may want to discuss say your cultural differences and what impact that has on your relationship, how you navigate that in that letter.
All right. Now, recent reports indicate that there are discussions around potentially deploying ICE agents to airports amid a DHS funding dispute. Developments like this can raise questions about enforcement presence and how immigration policies may be applied in travel settings. Now, Attorney Radzimowski, when immigrants hear about the possibility of increased enforcement at airports, how should they interpret these developments? Should travelers be taking any additional precautions or focus primarily on ensuring their documentation and status are in order when traveling?
Well, definitely you should carry with you all the documentation you have of your status when you go to the airport, especially now when there are ICE agents there. ICE agents have broad powers. They can arrest anyone that they suspect of being unlawfully present. So you really want to carry all your documentation with you when you go.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us for this special edition webinar, and thank you, Attorney Radzimowski, for sharing your knowledge and practical guidance with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. For everyone else, you can always visit immigrationquestion.com to ask immigration related questions, stay informed on policy updates, and register for upcoming live events. If you missed any part of today's important discussion, the replay will be available on Spotify soon. Just search Borderless Talk by immigrationquestion.com. We do look forward to seeing you on Saturday for our next live session. Until then, stay informed, stay prepared, and stay connected. Bye bye.